Basically, it's very simple. I was born in Germany, in East Germany, in Leipzig. I was trained in Leipzig, the place where I grew up, and my parents still live there. This is Leipzig. And the art school for me was between 90 and 1995. In 95, I went to New York and also Boston, stayed there for 7 years and did some postgraduate training at the School of Visual Arts, Hunter College. These are kind of regular art schools. And then finally, in 1999, 5 years after I graduated, I had my first solo exhibition in New York. So that was a dreadful time. 5 years, nothing, and then all of a sudden you exhibit. But that was the beginning. It was Bill Mintz Gallery, a very nice place, doesn't exist anymore. And the time in Boston ended with a Radcliffe Fellowship at Harvard University. It was an interdisciplinary program, and after that we went back to Germany. I also teach. I teach at the Fine Art School in Nuremberg, and I'm holding a chair for painting there. So painting is not only interesting for my work, but also as a focus to, to question what could be a form for the new generation, what to do with painting today. So one of my major interests is nature, but nature could be anything, right? You think like you go into the Regent Park and you think this is nature. It is nature, but I also regard nature as something which is my body, how I conceive my life, what happens on the threshold between nature and architecture, so that disposition of nature next to urban structures is something I'm really interested in. And when I'm saying that, of course, the human body, a portrait, a figure which is in that threshold or in that situation, has been in many paintings, but not all. So I have paintings, for example, this one, it doesn't have architecture, it has other things, but it has been a focus of my work, and I'm still thinking about it. It's not only the brush or the canvas, but it's really about the pigments and how you can use light in order to enhance the power of the painting. So, and then finally, painting today means that there is a contradiction between history and what we do today, because we have so many media which can really replace painting, yet it's not true. It's just a very ambivalent situation, and I would like to include that contradiction, or I'm working with it, and I don't know, I don't have an answer yet, but maybe the kind of animation or the process of painting could be something resembling that. I'm showing you now a few pictures of my studio between April and now, and it's not because I'm narcissistic, maybe I am, but I wanted to show you the size of the figure and the size of the group of canvases. So I always work in groups of canvas, in groups of paintings, many canvases, kind of similar sizes but slightly different. And with the first layer, which is kind of old-fashioned, called the imprimatura. It's something coming from the Middle Ages, but I use it as a tool to create atmosphere, to create movement, brush strokes. Like here you have different brush strokes than the one in the dark painting, and that already matters. It's very important because it's talking to me. Like when I freshly come in the morning in the studio and I see this kind of, it's crying to me, paint me. And then just a few weeks or days later, it starts to be a discussion between figurative details, things which really have a name, like flower or wooden floor or something, but also the juxtaposition of abstract elements, so meaning color fields, different applications of color. Some color is very dry, some color is very glossy. So all these things start to add up as basically a language, as and then next step, as I move along, I add more canvases. Sometimes it's just not enough. I didn't do only pansies. I saw this fantastic orchid. You say orchid? Like orchid. This lady slipper. It's really looking at you like a face. So I, knew I have to add another canvas in order to accommodate the lady slipper. I want to go back just one more time to that image. As a painter, you have the two dimensions, and it's two-dimensional. A picture is two-dimensional. It's all about illusion. But still, I'm interested in that space which is created by the image. And yet, I always think that a space happens to develop or evolve between the canvases. This is also a reason why I always paint more than one. I want to have these large-scale images as a space. You could just put them next to each other and you sit or sleep within these paintings, and this would be a space, this would be a room. Yeah, and then of course, why pansies? It's very simple again. I'm a city person, I don't have a garden, I love nature, I love flowers, so these are my pansies on my balcony in April or March, I don't remember. And I like these flowers for many reasons. One is because it's very simple, they look like a face. But if you look closer into the history of pansies, these are hybrid plants. So they have been, created or cultivated, you would say, in order to have the flower colors they have now. So, simple pansies in the mountains, they are just usually like a light white and then blue and a little bit yellow. But it's not what we know as pansies now. So there are all sorts of fancy flower colors now with pansies. And what is intriguing to me, because I love science, but I'm not a scientist, is the interaction of science with nature, or science, nature, art, and how we can interact in a world where everyone is afraid of AI interfering with life. So I'm interested in it, and I don't have an answer to that, but I would like to propose what artists can do, even if we are not scientists, what we can do with it. But again, it's not enough to kind of create content for a painting. So what I always do is I go to the museum's archive in Freiburg. It's a relatively small museum, but they have an enormous archive of all sorts of departments, natural history, painting, printing. And I went there to ask if they had pressed flowers like herbariums created by women. So of course no, 18th century, 19th century, there is no woman who did an herbarium, or museum didn't accept it. But this one, at the end, was given to me as, a connection to a woman, because it was given by a woman, Frau Sommer von Schondorf, as a gift to the museum. And I found that very interesting, because initially I was looking for pressed flowers, and I ended up with a collection of algae. And I wanted to show you that list. So this is a list of all the specimens in that collection. And this is the 14th of April, 1866, so it's not 1966. So it's a very long time ago, and the images I took from these algae are really amazing. Of course, Atkin comes to mind, but I thought it really creates a relation to my paintings, because it's two-dimensional, it still has a lot of structure, and it creates the setting for my pansies. This is why I created these paintings as pansies underwater. So when I said I'm not a scientist, this is it. I'm not thinking in linear ways. I'm really going by intuition, by things which trigger my imagination. And I really liked these images, and in the painting which you see here on the top, one of the algae is also included. Another aspect came to mind, because I'm interested in these artificial settings, nature, architecture, urban structures. So I went to the Basel Zoo. They have some fantastic modernist and brutalist architecture are these aquariums. So I went there and I took these pictures, and I knew that the light underwater is different. So the light comes from the aquarium. I love these kind of different structures, and then finally I found that the light from the top, of course, we have a single light bulb, and we know what happens if, in water is different, because then the rays of the light break within the transition of water and air, and different light is distributed to the flowers on the floor. And I really loved that. It was just by looking at that, and I wanted to show you that image. So I tried to imitate that in my pansy painting. Yeah. There's a painting I would like to show you here. It's a portrait of Johann Wolfgang Goethe. This very classical German idol of, conservative Germany, I would say. It's done by Tischbein. Tischbein was his friend. They were roommates on the Grand Tour in Rome. The Grand Tour was a trip all educated males were doing after their graduation from university. So in order to understand what they learned, they went on the Grand Tour through Europe, all fancy different places. And so Tischbein and Goethe were roommates, and Tischbein said, okay, let me paint you. And he painted, of course, this posture I think is very elegant, a little bit arrogant, and he's residing over the ruins of Greek and Roman history. And this picture really has been with me for a very long time, and I was waiting for the right moment to introduce it to one of my paintings. So now you see, this is the body of Goethe in my painting. And I'm showing you this picture because what I do is I take pictures, and when I leave at night, I go home, I have the images on my cell phone, and I try out what I can do with my iPhone or on the computer. So it's really, the tools I have is not only the brush, but it's Photoshop, it's my computer, it's going out to look at things, and of course, there are a couple of artists, and I would like to show you two. This is Basilius Bessler. He, again, was this interdisciplinary guy. He was a pharmacist, he was a garden designer, he was a botanist, and he drew and engraved these images. And the book is called Hortus Eichstättensis, so it's a book you can actually buy today. It's like a whole collection of all the flowers he collected in a garden he created for the one kind of prince of Gemmingen, I think. So what I like about these images is that the flowers are center stage, like they are a portrait. And it's different with, of course, Maria Sibylla Merian, who already introduced the interaction between insects and flowers and parasites and flowers. So already seeing that the human takes a different stand towards nature, acknowledging that there is something in between, the beauty of nature and us we are observing nature. I'm a very optimistic person, and it's part of me to be humorous and to enjoy a good laugh. And I see humor as a tool, as a painter also, kind of to understand the history of art. There are different ways of understanding or looking at art history in an empirical way, or just by looking at who is female, or there are many ways of trying to understand painting or art. And one possibility I see is in just acknowledging the fact that I'm a very humorous person, and you see it in the paintings, so why not using that? As painters and as artists, we have tools. So with this group of paintings, I'm talking about the tools of art making. This is a shape of a palette. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. And this also, and this as well. And So I think this is humorous, a humorous detail, but humor comes along always with sadness or seriousness. So it's very ambivalent to bring humor into art, because it can easily be very kitschy and very kind of floppy, or saying nothing. So I was doing research on painters' tools, and what you see here is a palette. This is done by a Polish painter, 19th century painting, and he asked other painters to paint on that palette. So it was used as a painter's palette, but he used it to create a trophy for a museum, to elevate the kind of tool, the artist's tool, into a different kind of category. So I really liked that. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And this is another one I also like that because it's so super kitsch, right? Yeah, good. So going back to tools of mankind, of course you have to go back to the beginning of mankind. And again, I went back to the museum archive and I looked at onyx, spear tops and hand axes, because I thought, I need to fill the content of my palettes. So what could that be? Of course, hand axes are almost in the shape of a palette. No, yes. So when you look closer at them, they're really almost like a painting, right? They're very intricate. The color, the black is reflected, and the beautiful surface, the shape, this is the palette I've made from these spear tops and these hand axes as the primary tool of mankind in a painter's palette. It's like 250 high, it's as big as this one. And then humor comes in again, because when I see it I think, okay, this is actually Darth Vader, or I would also like to show you how I approach things or painting from different angles. So in the pandemic I started to do ceramics. So this is like a very big hand axe made of ceramics, fired at really high degrees, like 1200. And I also completed this painting. So you see these hand axes being rocks or landscape. So I'm trying to investigate or research not only by going to the museum, but also really trying out different things in my paintings. And this was just a detail of this big painting. And then I'm going to show you two paintings by Konrad Witz. It's a medieval painter, also again from Basel. And you have probably seen these images. What I like about him is that the way he paints figures is more in a sculptural way. The fabrics are, you can observe it in other paintings, but he is not following that kind of late Gothic, early Renaissance approach of this naturalistic view of faces, and he still uses something which is, for me, it's very funny. And when I saw the dress of Maria, this is an Annunciation, and I saw, okay, of course, it's another palette. So I created this palette, which at the end looks like Snoopy. So it's about the history of painting. It's about the joy of the fabric, how it folds to something which might be three-dimensional. And so this is, I hope you understand, this is how my kind of thinking goes. It's, very erratic, very strange, and it's hard to explain, but I'm trying it. So, and one more painting by him to make you understand why I like him. It's called Anna. It's a biblical story. I'm not interested in the religious part, but I'm interested in the two figures. So it's Joachim and Anna. They're standing at the Golden Gate, and the storytelling goes that they just received the message, both of them, that they conceived a child. So fantastic, right? And First of all, they are rendered in the complementary colors, right? This is very bold. It's the green and red set in almost the monochromatic gray. If you think about Bauhaus and Johannes Itten, he really made a whole theory on color code, and this is already it, right? He knew what to do. And I liked the faces because, you know, the boy is telling the girl, oh yeah, it would be fantastic to have a child. She is thinking, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. This could be, you know, happening just around the corner. It's something very heartwarming, and I really like that. And this is also an aspect I like to include in the work. I'm going to jump a bit to my, I think, most humorous painting I've done. So these are my two people at the Golden Gates of my garden. It's a very recent painting. It has been in Shanghai, and it's like a self-portrait, right? So this is my husband, it's me. Yeah. So enough of that humor. I said at the beginning that the materiality of painting is important to me, and that means that I'm a convinced acrylic painter. So I'm using only acrylics. When I was a student, of course, I had all painted. But then I moved to New York, and we were in this apartment. Of course, I couldn't use solvents or turpentine, so I had to find something else, and I used tempera and casein, and you have it there sitting there for a week, and then it starts to smell like really moldy, horrible stuff. And I came across the acrylics and a company in Germany which is really focused on how to produce contemporary pigments, synthetic pigments, which are from everyday life, like here in this water bottle, the top, or it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, so in an art gallery, everything is artificial. Yeah, so I'm interested in that aspect. How can I transport what I see in reality, all these synthetic, super artificial colors in my painting? And you cannot do that with oil, because when you use oil, what happens is that the pigments are like little particles, and they kind of, when it dries, they sink. Of course they stay also in shape, but they sink a little bit, so they are far away from the surface of the medium. Light is reflected differently, and with acrylic media you keep the structure of the pigment in almost like a crystal structure. So light comes in, and there are much more pigments which can receive and reflect light. And I use that with different acrylic media and resins, to create very dry surfaces in contrast, juxtaposition to very glossy surfaces where a lot of light can come in and reflect. And sometimes I think painting is like, I want to show you a little video. Painting is really like cooking. I mean, it's very delicious to mix colors and to see what happens if they are in a big quantity. I always think, like, when I have this white, titanium white in my palette, I want to kind of lick it. It's like ice cream. Yeah, I'm not doing this. But. So painting is also like a test program. Yeah. Speaking about test program and colors, Johannes Itten and all these people, this is a yellow painting. It contains all the yellow pigments which you can get on the market. So it's another, investigation. What can be done with just one seemingly one pigment. And again, it would be very nice to have like the painting in reality. But I can tell you now that the background, the landscape, is painted with Hansa yellow. Then myself, I'm in cadmium. And then there are these structures which I created in SketchUp. That's an architecture program where you can design houses. And I transfer that to the canvas. This is cadmium orange. So it's very interesting, in order to create light and shadow, to have a three-dimensional aspect. You still can do that within a scale of yellow. So I love that. It's fun. So now you understand this is a blue painting. If you don't know about this aspect in my work. It's hard to tell, but and this is the red painting. And these are paintings from different times. So I'm speaking with my work, trying to find solutions. And so this is the lady's slipper, the yellow brownish one, which is the sister of Candy, which is here. And this one is in Munich right now. Yes. Yeah, so that's about it.